Hello YouTube. One of the most desirable wishes that most of the population of our planet has is to get local politicians kidnapped by aliens. I have to tell you that a case like that actually took place in Russia. And the gentleman who was kidnapped was quite outspoken about it. His name is Kirsan Ilumzhinov. And he was the president of the Republic of Kalmykia in the Russian Federation from 1993 to 2010. He's a very intelligent person. He was also and still is the president of the international governing body for the game of chess since 1995. World Chess Federation, I believe that's what it's called. Now, Kalmykia is land that borders the Caspian Sea. Not the best situated area in terms of wealth in Russia. But also Kalmykia is the only Buddhist region in Europe. And it's populated by about 300,000 people who are mostly descendants of the Golden Horde, the warriors of the Mongol Hans, who never came home after invading Russia centuries ago. It's a very interesting land. In the old times it was the Great Silk Way that was there, and you had ancient Scythians, Huns, Sarmats, and other warriors, including Amazons who were roaming through the steppes, and the ancient civilization of the Khazars who built towns there. A very interesting land. But here's what happened to Kirsan Ilumzhinov. So, like I said, he claims to be kidnapped by extraterrestrials. And his story started in September of 1997, when he was in Moscow. One day, actually on September 18th of 1997, that day, Kirsan Ilumzhinov came home after a busy day of work, and he came to his Moscow apartment. The next day he was about to return to Elista, capital of Kalmykia. So that evening he read a book, watched television, and went to bed. He closed his eyes, and then he heard the balcony door open. Somebody called him. Ilumzhinov came to the balcony and observed that now there was a wide and transparent pipe attached to the balcony. A grown man could easily walk in. Ilumzhinov observed humanoids in yellow spacesuits. They looked just like men, he mentioned, like human beings. So he started communicating with them. Later he mentioned that a lot of times reporters and others asked Ilumzhinov how was it that he communicated with the extraterrestrials or aliens. He said that he never uttered a word. Whatever voices he heard were in his head. Ilumzhinov says that he was given a spacesuit, and he just thought that there wasn't enough air, and at the same time he mentioned that the extraterrestrial pointed to his chest, meaning, why don't you adjust here a little bit, push on this device? And that's what Ilumzhinov did. And of course, more oxygen, he received more oxygen. What's most interesting, mentioned Ilumzhinov, is that it appeared to him that the extraterrestrials did not really see him or pay attention to him. He still doesn't understand why he was kidnapped. He wasn't really taken around the huge spaceship. Ilumzhinov mentioned that the spaceship was really huge, and one of the cabins, he said, was as big as a football field, and portholes were all over. He was told that the extraterrestrials had to take samples from one of the planets. So the ship landed and took away some kind of equipment. Ilumzhinov asked aliens, why is it that they don't want to communicate with mankind or humankind to television, and why is it that they don't want to let Earthlings know that they exist, and why not is it that they would not communicate with the people of the Earth? The extraterrestrials told him that the people of the Earth, or Earthlings, are not ready for such a meeting. And then Ilumzhinov remembered that he asked them to bring him back to Earth as soon as possible because he was busy. He had work to do. After all, he was on a business trip to Moscow at the time. Ilumzhinov added on a number of occasions that he himself would not have believed in the reality of what had taken place had there not been witnesses. And there were 3 witnesses. One of them was his driver, the other one was a minister from Kalmykia, and an assistant. They came to Ilumzhinov in the morning at the designated hour to take him to the airport. They came inside the apartment. They found out that the balcony was open and the president of Kalmykia was absent from the apartment. Of course, they became quite worried and were wondering if maybe some evildoers came inside the apartment and maybe kidnapped Kirsan, Ilumzhinov. After all, he lived at the very top floor. So they started calling all his acquaintances, asking if they knew where the president of Kalmykia would be. And then all 3 of them gathered in the kitchen, trying to figure out how to raise alarms, who to go to. After all, it's not a joke. The president of the sovereign republic has disappeared. What seemed strange to them is that his telephone and all the things were where they should be. And at that time, Kirsan Ilumzhinov came out from the bedroom. He looked at their eyes and saw amazement, mentioned Ilumzhinov. And he told them, "Guys, it's time to fry eggs. We eat. It's time to go to the airport. We're in a hurry." And they asked him, "Where were you?" Well, they heard the answer. "I flew on the saucer with extraterrestrials." So they were offended. "Come on, we're asking you seriously." And then they started surmising, I should say, what was going on. After all, they were inside the apartment for 1 hour when Ilumzhinov was absent. They looked into every room at that time. They couldn't find him. And then all of a sudden, Ilumzhinov comes from the bedroom, which they checked out everywhere thoroughly. So for a number of months, his workers were quite in shock. And then, for a number of days, recalled Ilumzhinov, he walked about thinking, why is it that the extraterrestrials took me with them? And he was actually mad at himself that he did not ask them any questions. But maybe they are right. Maybe it's not time yet for extraterrestrials or aliens to meet with the present civilization on Earth. So that's his story, and this is the politician who came back. What's interesting is that UFOs do come to Elista, the capital of Kalmykia, on a number of occasions. And that was the case, for example, in 2011. And he was asked about this, about the UFO cases that took place that year. But he said that they didn't come to him. Now, the president of Kalmykia, Orlov, at the time, did not really care about any extraterrestrial representatives coming to Earth. In 2011, the people who live in Elista observed very unusual phenomena. There were two concentric rings over the city, and they were radiant, glowing rings. The inner part of the ring would move about as the clock hands would, and the other one would move out in the different direction. I'm sure there were visits of UFOs to Kalmykia through the centuries. It's a very interesting land, and when you visit Russia, don't forget to come, because you will see a very unusual land and its people who are practicing Buddhists, and actually a place of history. And that's what happened to Kirsan Ilumzhinov and his experiences with the extraterrestrials. The only interesting point I want to mention is that another Russian politician at the time kept demanding that Ilumzhinov be investigated, because it could be that he gave away secrets of the Russian Federation to the extraterrestrials. But nothing happened. And I am sure in the future other politicians will be kidnapped, and maybe that's what the people of the earth would welcome. But this politician came back, and he wasn't shy about his experiences, and actually he talked about them. So all I can say is kudos to him. Thank you.